You won't believe what happened when this HOA Karen tried to drag me into a lawsuit over something that wasn't even real. It all started when I got a letter out of nowhere. She claimed I was part of her HOA and demanded I pay fees or face legal action. The thing is, I don't even live in her neighborhood, let alone belong to her HOA. But Karen wasn't having any of it. She was ready to take it to court and make a big deal out of nothing. At first, I thought it was just another annoying mix-up, but things quickly escalated. This wasn't your typical HOA complaint or a simple disagreement about yard rules. Karen was aggressively pushing this case, acting like she had all the power. I had no idea what kind of trouble I was walking into, but I knew I had to stand my ground. I started digging into her HOA's documents, trying to understand how she could even claim I was a member. What I found shocked me. The whole HOA was barely a thing, with major legal flaws. When the day came to face the judge, I expected a long, stressful battle. But what happened in that courtroom was something I never saw coming. The judge didn't just dismiss the case quietly. She dissolved the entire HOA on the spot. Imagine that. A whole HOA wiped out in minutes because of how poorly it was set up. But here's the catch. Just when I thought it was over, things took a strange turn that left me questioning what this Karen might do next. There's more to this story than just a lawsuit and a dissolved HOA. Stick around, because you won't want to miss what happened after the judge's surprising decision. This is one HOA drama you have to hear to believe. Before all this courtroom drama, things seemed pretty normal, or at least as normal as they can be when you're dealing with a Karen in an HOA. Karen had been known around the neighborhood as the kind of person who always wanted control. She was the president of the HOA board, but it felt like she was running it more like her personal kingdom than a community group. She'd complain about everything from lawn decorations to parking spots and was quick to threaten anyone who didn't fall in line. Honestly, most neighbors just tried to avoid her. I never thought much about her or her HOA until the day I got that letter. It wasn't just a casual note. It was a formal demand for payment and a warning about legal consequences if I didn't comply. That's when I realized she was seriously trying to pull me into something I had no part in. I didn't live in her neighborhood, I didn't agree to any HOA rules, and I hadn't even signed any documents. So how could she expect me to pay her fees? I started asking around, trying to get a sense of how this HOA actually worked. What I discovered was surprising. The HOA wasn't officially registered in the way it should have been. There were missing documents, no clear bylaws, and even some neighbors who claimed they'd never agreed to be part of it. It felt like Karen was just making things up as she went along, using the HOA as a way to control people and maybe make some money on the side. When I mentioned this to a few people, I realized I wasn't the only one who felt trapped or confused by her actions. But I had no idea how deep the mess went until the day we faced the judge. And even after the HOA got dissolved, I could tell this wasn't the end. There were still questions left hanging, and Karen seemed far from done. What would she do next? That's the real mystery. After the judge dissolved the HOA, you'd think things would calm down, right? But no, that was just the beginning. Karen wasn't someone to back off easily. In fact, her reaction only made things more complicated. She started telling anyone who would listen that the court had made a mistake, and that the HOA was still very much alive and kicking. She even hinted at appealing the decision, which meant this fight wasn't going anywhere soon. Meanwhile, I started hearing from neighbors who were caught in similar situations. Some were getting letters from Karen demanding payments for fees they never agreed to. Others said she was trying to enforce rules on people who lived outside her HOA boundaries. It felt like she was using the HOA as a tool for control, not community. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was a bigger issue affecting multiple people at the same time. There was another layer to this whole story that I hadn't expected. I found out that Karen had been involved in some questionable property deals around the neighborhood. Rumors were flying that she might be trying to use the HOA to pressure homeowners into selling their properties or paying extra fees. I couldn't verify everything yet, but it made me wonder how much power one person could really hold when no one was watching closely. Then there was the local city council, which suddenly got interested. Some officials started asking questions about how the HOA was operating and whether any laws had been broken. That added a new twist, because now it wasn't just a private fight, it was potentially a legal and political problem. I felt like I was stuck in the middle of a mess that was way bigger than just a bad HOA president. Even as I tried to keep my distance, Karen kept pushing, sending more notices and making more threats. The tension was building, and I knew that whatever happened next could change everything. But I still didn't know how deep this conflict went and what it might cost me to stand my ground as the days went on. The pressure kept mounting. Karen's emails and letters didn't stop. They kept coming, each one more aggressive than the last. She was insisting I pay fees, threatening more legal action, and claiming the judge's ruling was somehow invalid. I could tell she wasn't going to let this go quietly. At the same time, I was hearing from more neighbors who were feeling the weight of her demands. It was clear Karen's tactics were working to scare people into submission even when they had no legal standing. What made it worse was the constant uncertainty. Was the HOA truly dissolved? Or was there some loophole Karen was banking on? Could she really bring this back to court? The thought of going through another battle was exhausting. Every day felt like walking on thin ice, not knowing when or how Karen would strike next. Then came the city council's involvement. Officials were asking questions, and it seemed like a formal investigation was underway. Suddenly, the conflict wasn't just personal. It had escalated to a community-wide issue. People were paying attention now, and that made Karen even more defensive and unpredictable. I started wondering if she would dig in her heels or back down once she realized the stakes were higher than just one person refusing to pay fees. On top of that, the rumors about Karen's shady property deals kept swirling. It felt like there was a hidden agenda behind all this, something bigger than just an HOA dispute. Maybe she was trying to force people out or grab control of more property in the area. The thought made my skin crawl, but without solid proof. It was hard to say anything for sure. I found myself caught in the middle of a storm that was only growing stronger. Every message from Karen brought a new wave of tension. Every phone call from neighbors added another layer to the mystery. I knew the next step could change everything, but I had no idea what it would be or how it would end. The moment of truth was coming, and I wasn't sure if I was ready. Just when I thought things couldn't get any more intense, a new twist hit me like a lightning bolt. Out of nowhere, I received an anonymous message with documents proving that Karen had secretly tried to register the HOA under a different name, one that included properties far beyond her original neighborhood. It was like she was trying to expand her control without anyone noticing. These papers showed her attempting to force homeowners who had no connection to the original HOA into this new one, demanding fees and threatening lawsuits just like she did with me. This wasn't just about one bad HOA president anymore. It was turning into a full-blown scheme. Suddenly, the stakes were higher than I ever imagined. If Karen succeeded, she could basically claim power over large chunks of the community, making it almost impossible for people to fight back. It felt like a takeover under the radar, and I was smack in the middle of it. At the same time, the city council's investigation was uncovering more irregularities. Some officials privately told me that Karen's actions might go beyond just HOA mismanagement. They were looking into possible fraud and misuse of funds tied to her property deals. That explained why she was so desperate to keep the HOA alive, even after the judge dissolved it. This wasn't just a petty power play, was potentially criminal. I couldn't shake the feeling that Karen was watching my every move. Her constant threats felt less like empty words and more like warnings. The pressure was unbearable. I had to figure out how to protect myself and my neighbors. Before she could cause even more damage, the situation was spiraling out of control. The question was no longer if Karen would fight back, was how far she was willing to go. And with everything at risk, I knew the showdown was coming soon. But what would it look like? And who would come out on top? The answers were still out there, waiting to be uncovered. The day of the big hearing finally arrived, and the tension in the courtroom was thick enough to cut with a knife. Karen walked in with the same confident air, acting like she was going to win this battle no matter what. But this time, I wasn't alone. A group of neighbors who had been affected by her schemes showed up to support me, and even some city officials were there, ready to back up the investigation into her actions. When the judge called the case, everything came crashing down for Karen. We presented the documents proving the HOA's illegal registration, the false fees, and the attempts to expand control over properties that had no business being included. The City Council's findings about potential fraud and misuse of funds added serious weight. Karen tried to argue, but the evidence was overwhelming. The judge didn't just dissolve the HOA again this time. She officially declared it null and void, with orders for Karen to cease all attempts to enforce any HOA rules or collect fees. But just when I thought the nightmare was over, the judge dropped a bombshell. The court also opened a criminal investigation into Karen's actions, pointing out that her attempts to manipulate the HOA and intimidate neighbors could lead to serious charges. The room went silent. Karen's face changed from confident to stunned in seconds. It was clear this fight was far from over for her. As we left the courthouse, the neighbors and I felt a huge sense of relief. The HOA was finally gone, and Karen's power was broken at least for now. But with the criminal investigation just beginning, the real story was just unfolding. Would justice truly be served? Could Karen find a way to fight back, or would this be the end of her reign of control? Whatever happens next, one thing's certain. Standing up to a Karen who thinks she owns the neighborhood isn't easy. But sometimes, it takes just one person refusing to back down to change everything. In the weeks after the court's ruling, life around the neighborhood slowly started to feel normal again. Without the HOA hanging over everyone like a cloud, neighbors began talking openly, sharing their stories and helping each other figure out how to manage things without Karen's heavy-handed control. It was like a weight had been lifted, and people could finally breathe. Karen, on the other hand, mostly kept to herself. The criminal investigation loomed, and though she tried to maintain her usual attitude, it was clear she wasn't the same. Some neighbors said they saw her packing up and moving away, but no one knew for sure. Either way, her influence was gone. At least for now. Looking back, this whole experience taught me a lot about standing up for what's right, even when the odds feel stacked against you. Sometimes it's easy to let people like Karen push you around, especially when they use the system to scare you. But knowing your rights and not backing down can make all the difference. It also reminded me how important community really is. When neighbors come together, there's no power strong enough to divide them. I'm sharing this story not just because it's crazy HOA drama, but because it's a reminder. Don't let anyone make you feel powerless. Whether it's an overbearing HOA president or anyone else trying to take control unfairly, your voice matters. You're not alone. Thanks for sticking with me through this wild ride. If you've ever had your own HOA battles or run into a Karen who tried to bully you, drop a comment. I'd love to hear your story. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more real-life stories like this. Sometimes the biggest fights come from the smallest places, and you never know when standing up might just change everything.